Welcome back to the second hour of Lovebabz Love Talk. As promised, Enroue is in the building. Well, he's over at his house and I'm over at my house. Hey, Enroue.
And hey there, Babs.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Um, yeah, 25 years of being married.
Woo,
That's some time.
that's some time, baby.
That's some time. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's really beautiful.
It is beautiful. And,
Yeah.
and I love being able to just wish you all a happy anniversary.
Thank you so much.
You know?
For those of you who cannot see Babs or have not seen Babs in a while, Babs has this like white crown of hair. Usually it's purple and and you got this white top on. It's like this glorious. I
I
don't
know,
know.
with this dark skin. Yeah, I get
It's
it.
great.
I get it. I get it.
You
I
look
get
great.
it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's all. It's-
Giving it a little different something, little
yeah,
something else to
mix it up
do.
a little. That's
Yeah,
important.
you know, change
Uh,
up a little bit. Change is good.
yeah.
What's new? What's happening? What's on your heart and mind?
Well,
Harry's been looking forward to hearing you today. So,
yeah. That makes me curious. Um, well, let's do a little welcoming chanting, and then we'll get into the topic of the day, so to speak. So this Yoruba chant is to honor our relationship with our ancestors. We're honoring them for the gifts, the blessings, the goodness, the affinities, the aspects of ourselves that we rejoice in, and even those aspects that we don't even know yet that are waiting for us to rejoice in. So we honor our ancestors for those things that they have left for us, and those very things that they have left for us, we are using them today. So that's the translation of this chant. Iba Baba is like I honor my male lineage. Iba Ye Ye, I honor my female lineage, or like respected elder women. Iba Egungun is I'm honoring all of my ancestors. Iba Baba to fun wa ṣe o. Iba Baba to fun wa ṣe. Iba Baba to fun wa ṣe o. Ìbà bàbá tó fún wa ṣe àṣetè fún wa là ń lò yìí o. Ìbà bàbá tó fún wa ṣe. Ìbà yèyé tó fún wa ṣe o. Ìbà yèyé tó fún wa ṣe. Ìbà yèyé tó fún wa ṣe o. Ìbà yèyé tó fún wa ṣe àṣetè fún wa là ń lò yìí o. Ìbà yèyé tó fún wa ṣe. Ìbà egungun tó fún wa ṣe o. Ìbà egungun tó fún wa ṣe. Ìbà egungun tó fún wa ṣe o. Ìbà egungun tó fún wa ṣe. Àṣetè fún wa là ń lò yìí o. Ìbà egungun tó fún wa ṣe. 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 Àṣẹ.
Ashe. Oh,
Oh, wow. So it's interesting. So our wedding anniversary is October 17th, and October 3rd is the anniversary of my older sister's passing, who passed away
mm,
3 years ago. And um, yeah, I've been like really feeling the sadness, the grief at her dying. in a different way this year. Not like, I don't know if more is the right word, but it's certainly it's now is now and it's really present. So that's as far as I can figure out. And so I was like, oh, let me, I've been writing some poetry, and a bunch of the poetry is centered around some of that grief and the relationship with my sister. And then also, so I was like, oh, today let's like really look at like pay attention to grief. And there's so much also like in the world, so many things happening in Gaza, and death and oppression that continues here for so many people. And then this wonderful also reminder, right, as you wish me happy anniversary, of love. And they're not disconnected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, it can be kind of overly simplistic to like, oh, we're gonna just like, here's this like grief, or here's this sadness, or here's like just love. But I think there's something particularly important, really about holding. How do we hold both of those things, right? Because the grief is actually about the love of somebody, the love of something, right? And so when we lose it, right, there's grieving in that loss, and it can be really easy to prioritize the pain that's there, not just allowing it to be there, but like, oh, we have to go in it, right? Or shun it completely. And I think the invitation is really to hold both of them, right? Because our hearts are very simple organs. They're kind of like open or closed, or some variation of that. It's not like, well, I'll be open to the good and I'll close it to the bad. And for so many, like grief can be a really unpleasant, disruptive emotion and experience. And it's just important to remember the fundamental connection to love that's in there, and to joy that's in there. And not just like joy and the joy that's lost, but like that joy and that love also exists in us in relation to that person. My love for my sister still exists in me, even as feelings of sadness also arise. And so even in the rejoicing of the celebration of being married to my wife Tegan for 25 years, right? It's the love that's really present, right? And that I can experience and feel, and it's to really allow that to soak in, to not be afraid to let that soak in, because someday, right, one of us will pass away first, or I mean, even when I know of couples who've passed away very close to each other, right? There's a losing, right? And that's certainly not the what's typical. Many more people in my family where one partner, one person is loved one has died before another. And so let ourselves still to like absorb that love and rejoice in that love and be present in it, and the complexity that goes into it. There's something, yeah, there's something really important in that, because love itself is not so, it's not simple either, right?
Mm.
It's not like, oh, just like pleasure and joy. I mean, it holds much more, right? The building of a relationship that allows for that has challenge, right? Has conflict, has going into tender places in our hearts. Right? To really love means to be in a tender place, right? To be connected to those tender places in our hearts. And that's hard. That's, to be vulnerable, to allow that risk of vulnerability and experiencing, like trusting, but also like the experience of the relationship is one that fosters that trust. So to build a really strong foundation of connection, of care, of kindness, so that anything else can, even if there's a challenge, to not get lost in the challenge, but also to remember the ground, right, that's there, the fundamental ground that's there. So I don't know. I don't have like a specific point to all of this. There's
I,
just
I
some
like
music about this.
I like that you tied grief and love, all of it together, because I think we compartmentalize all of that, and
Yeah.
we don't think of them as connected things, but they very much are.
Yeah. And there's, yeah, in that to like, so there's a, in so many traditions, in the Yoruba tradition, right, we understand that change is the norm. And that's like the way the reality is, right? Today is different than yesterday. Tomorrow's going to be different than today. 10 minutes ago is different than now, than whatever 10 minutes from now is going to be. And one aspect is to like learn to be with that. But it doesn't mean we just like abandon everything. Oh, whatever is just whatever. Because there are things that we need, right? We particularly need, like I need for my wellness and my well-being different than what you need. And so we do ebo, we make offerings or sacrifices to cultivate the things, to nourish the things, to be in relationship with the things that we need. And it means not doing something else, right? So to be in this relationship, to be married to Taken for 25 years means I'm not in some other kind of relationship for 25 years, right? To choose her meant not choosing other people. And these choices are actually very alive. Because I know lots of people, as I'm sure you do, who've been together a lot less than 25 years before they break up, and even people who've been together for this long and still break up. And it's been really powerful to not like the choice is not the same as it was, 25 or 26 years ago, but there's still this like choosing this relationship, like choosing what that connectivity is like. That still has to be relevant, and to be present with that means that not just it continues, but like whatever is relevant and really needed continues. And if something is like, oh, maybe do I need something else? For example, the state of this relationship, and I hope for many, means I could bring that up. Like, oh, there's a movement over here. What does that mean? And like to be in relationship about that change, which also means that instead of the fear of some kind of loss or the fear of a grief of something ending, closing my heart to protect itself from hurt, right? That would mean closing my heart to the love and to the goodness, right? So if I close my heart to a relationship because I'm afraid of, oh, it's going to end, so I should like be ready for that. I should protect myself. It's like, well, let me really be open and still be in it the way I need to be in it, and actually hold it as dear and as precious, because things change. That's the nature of things. There's also a teaching that I came across once out of the Buddhist tradition, which is like the teaching of the broken cup. And it was like someone holding, like having like their favorite beautiful cup, which they love so much. And the teaching is actually to imagine at some point this cup will break. And so to use that teaching to be thankful and to see as precious its wholeness now, because at some point it may not be. So really to feel into this, the circumstances of our lives now. Oh, I have this precious cup. The circumstance of it. Oh, I have this precious relationship. Because, just as my sister passed away, that can change, very suddenly. And let me be precious. Let me be present with the preciousness in those moments, because things will change. Right? Let me hold that with my parents who are both alive, because at some point they will not be. And the way things typically move is our parents pass away before we do. I mean, it didn't happen with my sister, but that's why that's so painful. But if everything goes well and we're all healthy as we can be, the natural course of things is for them to pass away. So let me be present and love them the way I need, the way I want to, the way that like my heart wants to, which is not always easy because of complicated relationships with parents, right? But let me do my best so that when that transition happens, I can be also present with the transition, and then I can really be present with what comes after. Ways that there's grief, but also ways that there's so much gratitude and and also in this tradition, right? We are still in relationship with our ancestors. So all these relationships change. They don't end. They change and they transform. I was talking to somebody once, and actually, and this was their father. I think we were talking about their father, who's still alive. And I was like, "Oh, what's your relationship like?" They're like, "Oh, we don't have one." And it's because they hadn't, they were estranged from each other and had seen each other years. I said, "Well, I mean, you actually have a relationship. It's just one that like you don't see each other, and there's these difficult feelings. There's some like distance and disconnection and estrangement, but that's still a relationship." You know, we have relationships with kind of everybody on the planet. It's not all like close and intimate. There's some, there are people and beings that we like don't know exist and like have know nothing about them, but that's the nature of the relationship. And so we could even pay attention to what those feelings are, what that experience is. But that starts to get a little bit too abstract. But it's to say that like with this person, their parent, like be, because of the nature of being the child of somebody or being related to in that way, right? Not a chosen family. There's a fundamental part of the relationship that's not about a choice or what we want or don't want. It's there. And it's just really powerful if we just admit that, and we can admit the feelings that are in it, and even hold the difficult relationship in a way that's precious, that's important. Because we're still we still have feelings about it, right? It's still in our heart. This relationship is still in our heart.
Mm, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe like this October, right? It's these two things. It's also autumn is here.
Yeah.
It's more visible, these transitions, right? The leaves are changing color and raining down, and the landscape is changing. The weather is changing. Not like in normal fall, like we've had a bout of very warm weather. Right, so climate change is also happening. But it says it's this place of change. And so how change is not just like something to get through, but is also about being present in that change. Because why not? Like we said, like since change is actually happening all the time, it's more evident now, like with leaves changing. But in the middle of summer, right, there's still lots of change happening. Things are growing. We have the shift from spring to fall, right? That's a lot of change in terms of like what the weather looks like. But it's easier to pay attention to some of these changes in ourselves as we see them around us. Yeah. So I don't know, just a lot of like real, even like as I'm in this conversation, like there's a very different kind of space around like my heart and around like some tenderness that's really present. Both the sadness that's there, but also this like sweetness of a long, wondrous, surprising, relationship. You know. And I say that because, I was never somebody who had a plan of being married with children. even people in my family will kind of laugh and be like, "Oh yeah, we didn't really think you were gonna like find somebody," um, or yeah, there's all kinds of opinions.
Find
Uh,
find somebody.
well, more like so before Tegan and I met, almost the person who I was dating before Tegan, our relationship lasted 6 months. All of my relationships before that lasted less than 3 months. And I didn't date all the time. There's a lot of time I spent single. Um, but a lot of that was actually because I didn't really know what I needed. And so I had ideas. I was like, well, if I'm going to be, I'm a feminist, if I'm really going to look at like what are the needs of the partners I'm in. But what I also did more is I looked at, am I meeting their needs? And I was not really looking at what are some of the things I needed. And so I'd get to a certain point and I was like, this is not for me. Like this is somehow I've created and joined in a relationship where what I need and who I am is not also folded into it. And this is kind of overly simplistic, but that was kind of the theme. So I took a long break of dating to like I need to like get some of my own stuff together, um, so that if I find somebody, I'm at least tuning into what they need, but also holding what I need as important. And I think I think this is important in general, but also not just in terms of being a feminist, but I grew up with a lot of dysfunction in my family, and so learned to like how to really pay attention to what other people needed because I thought that was the way to get my own needs met. Well, if I make sure that you're okay or we're oriented around what you need, then it's almost like I'll be pulled in the wake of you, right? And kind of I'll get a little bit of my needs met. Or if like, oh, I'll make a big feast for you, well, I'll get a little bit of leftovers for me that I really like. I'll add a little topping or glaze on something that I really like, and maybe I'll get that too. And so really having to undo that and unlearn that to the best of my ability, because I could see how that was really getting in the way of being in a relationship that also met my needs. Right?
Hmm.
And that happens not just in romantic relationships, right? That how do even in like families, right? So we talk about my sister, how our relationship moves and morphs and changes, and like how we're able to hold our perspectives and our needs in addition to being able to see this other person, right? Who's a completely different person than us, but whose our lives are intersected and interwoven. And it very often, so my sister moved to New Haven, I don't remember when, several years ago. And we started beginning to have a relationship that, was different, just kind of as adults and of who we are in our lives. We're kind of getting to know each other in a very different way. And it was really wonderful the opportunity that my kids had to be close to her because she lived in her neighborhood, so they could stop by after school and have a relationship with Auntie Kirsten. And like we were also would get to know each other, and some of that was like smooth and easy, and some of that was like clanging and clunking against each other, and then like, oh, how do we navigate that while still, being connected? Because that was also important. Um, and it meant that there were certain things that would come up that were like, oh, like there's not really an easy meeting place around that, so that's just going to be what it is. Um, but unless we what I always felt was that she was someone who was always willing to do that. Like, well, how can we be honest? How can we look at like the dysfunctional patterns that we have, the challenges that we've had growing up, and how can we find a way in this life and find a way to be in relationship with each other that's honest and also caring and connected.
Hmm.
In some ways, that's kind of all we can do, right? To be as present as possible. Yeah.
That's a lovely sentiment. I don't think people wrestle enough with those kinds of thoughts and feelings. Sometimes it's not always smooth. Sometimes it's,
It is
painful
not
and
always smooth.
loud and clingy and
Yeah. And painful. Yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, really? You think that? Or I thought this, or, you know, particularly when two stubborn people are in the room, you know, who know they're right. So what's funny is when Tay and I got married, we had a Jewish and Yoruba ceremony. And for the Yoruba part, our teacher, Baba Wande Abimbola, married us. And beforehand, we had a divination done and the spiritual reading. Like, how do we, in this connection, really garner all the sacred support, and what messages may need to come up that is going to help guide us. And he said to us once, he was like, you have to learn how to say yes, yes. And we're both like, what does that mean? Right? And it's basically, you know, we're strong-willed, stubborn people. We can be. And sometimes it's really important for just one person just to say yes, yes, right? If you're in a thing, you're tussling about something, just put it down. And not put it down with like, yeah, I know I'm right, but I'm just gonna let you win, right? But really just say like yes, yes. Like that's the like double yesing that's needed. I know you're right, or I know I'm just gonna let this go because what it's doing is actually causing more disruption than what's needed, right? This piece around like I'm right or you're right or you did this, you didn't do that. And to remember, all those little things, sometimes it's just like let them be little and remember the care, remember the love, remember that foundation that's there. And this isn't a competition. This isn't about like who's more right or who's justified in this or whose whose turn is it? I remember when Io was very young, whose turn is it to get up and do whatever with the baby and like who did what during the day and so deserves to sleep a little more and you navigate those things, but like everything doesn't have to be a principled, you know, righteous debate. Just learn how to say yes, yes. So it's something that we still, we don't. Sometimes it's more of a, oh yeah, I know this is really what I need to do, so I say yes, yes, right? I can. There's some ease in that, but it was a very powerful, like, oh, you know, I come from people in a society, right? That's like that's really prioritizes being right, and there could be this like value judgment, right, of oneself, of myself, or of others, if like, who's right, and this kind of thing really helps to undo that. Like, oh, there's something in the relationship that's more important than being right, and let me honor that.
mm-hmm.
Honor that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let us honor, right, these relationships that we have now. Let us feel into our hearts the goodness that's there, the friendships that we hear that are there, the kindness that we can feel towards people. All right, let that vulnerability be there. Let us feel the good, but also let us honor that, like, even the difficulty that is there is because we care. The I may get really bent out of shape because somebody did something or said something or I perceived it, might actually be because I really care about something in this relationship with this person. Otherwise, like, why am I so triggered by it, right? Why do I feel so defensive about it, right? It shifts to anger instead of, oh, you hurt me, so now I have to be angry. Oh, so if I'm hurt, oh, maybe it's because I really care, right? And maybe I can respond or be connected to them from that place of caring.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, like I've said so many times on the show, like, and what we're talking about today, like, we're not here for a long time.
Nope.
And time can feel like it goes slow or feel like it goes very quickly. Like I never would have imagined being 56 and being married for 25 years and having children that are 20 and 16. Like, what? When did that all happen, right? But of course, it
Ooh.
all happened. It was not, right? I was present for all of it. And hopefully, we pray to be present for all more, right? Um, but during this time of change, during this time of grief and stress and strain and anxiety and worry about politics, about the planet, about war and genocide and trauma and abuse and so much that's in the day to day, right? Not just the big things, right? That in the midst of that, we always like to also feel that like this something in this life is still important that we care about, that we love, and to let ourselves be connected to that, and let ourselves be connected to the sadness when those things are hurt, when those things are damaged, or when someone dies or something dies. Even as we know things change, there's still a loss. Right?
Mhm.
My sister's physically not here, right? Can't have her come over or go see her in the same way, even though I know all these different ways that she is still living, in me and my family, in our hearts, in the spiritual realms. But it's also a loss. And there's a preciousness in the love and care that's there as well, a tenderness that's just in the heart, right?
Thank you. I
Thank you.
know this message resonates with somebody, a bunch of folks today. I know it.
Mm,
Thank you
thank you,
so
Babs.
much.
Have a
Don't
glorious.
worry, y'all. Enroue will be back. There's more. There's more.
I'll pray for that. Yeah.
There's more. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time and your wisdom.
Thanks,
Uh,
Babs.
I
Thanks for
appreciate it.
inviting me on
I, you know,
in the
I
space.
tell people I don't really care who listens. It's really for me. This is really, really very
Thank you for
personal to me.
inviting me in to have this conversation with you, and the people get to tag along. And thank you also, Harry, for all your work.
All
Yeah.
right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. And I know I'll see you soon.
Yes. Take care, Babs.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Harry Droz. I'll see you Monday. No, today's Thursday. I've got guests tomorrow. I've got a Jamaican sister coming on tomorrow. She's the keynote for the Jamaican American Connection. Juliet is coming on, and she is one of these very, very funny people. And she does a very Jamaican inspired Kamala Harris. And if you've not seen her on the internet doing this, it is hilarious. But she is coming on tomorrow morning, one to hype up her presence and keynote at the Jamaican American Connection Gala, which is next weekend, next Saturday. But to just to and help raise money for scholarships for Caribbean kids going off to college. So tune in tomorrow. You'll enjoy her. She's funny, and I'll tell you more about her tomorrow. But she's funny. So y'all have a good day. I'll be back.
Mm-hmm.